This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could be me? You're me, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2017 NFL Draft. I, of course, am your set man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me as I take you along this journey as we get closer and closer to the 2017 NFL Draft. And what we're looking to do is break down as many prospects as humanly possible. Before we get to that draft, we want to know as many of these players that could potentially go in the first round, possibly early second round, as we can get to know. So I'm going to help you with that as we're talking running backs right now. Probably two of the bigger names at the position have already been knocked down. If you haven't checked those videos out, please go and do so. Dalvin Cook already done. So has the big back out of LSU in Leonard Fournette. Now, this draft has very rich value at this position. I've talked about that already, and part of the reason why is because you can get a guy like this in the back end of the first round, possibly in the second round, depending on how things go. I don't think this guy's going to be around when the second round gets underway, but you just never know how things shake out during draft day. But I'll tell you one thing's for sure. It's another one of these guys, very talented. I think you have to have a plan in mind, though, if you're going to draft this guy, but it doesn't matter. This guy is uber talented. I'm talking about Stanford's Christian McCaffrey. What a big day for him at the Combine in February, and I thought he needed to have a big day. Of all the running backs, I thought he was the guy that needed to go and show out the most because you know how it is, man. It's not many times and in many different walks of life where white people are in the minority and they have to go out and prove or disprove some type of stereotype. It's rare. It's very rare where you look at a white person and say, you can't do this because you're white. It's not going to happen very often, but in the National Football League, there are a few positions where you rarely see white guys be one of the better players at that position, running back being one of them. So I said, hey, Christian, if you want people to stop calling you a white running back, which technically you are a white running back, but we know there's a connotation to that. Go out and prove that you are an athlete at the Combine. And I thought he was the best running back at the Combine. So he went out, showed what he had to prove at the Combine. And I think it's going to help his draft stock and elevate him into a first round running back. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey and his pros and why I think he's got a legit shot at being a first round pick. First thing I think about when I think of Christian McCaffrey, watching the tape and watching him throughout his career at Stanford, is athleticism. And I thought he went out and displayed that exact thing at the Combine, which I thought he needed to do. I said, look, you want me to believe you're not just any old average white running back. I need you to run sub 4.5. He said, I got you, man, 4.48. And I think he might be even faster than that on game day. So that was a big check them up. But if you're talking athleticism, it's not always just about speed. He's got quickness and it's lateral agility. It's the ability to stop and start and get back to top speed, leaping over defenders. He's a guy that will, in mid-stride, jump over a defender and hit the ground and take off running like Scooby-Doo. I mean, the feet are still moving. He hits the ground and he takes off running. He has tremendous athleticism. You see it on display. And I thought at the Combine, his athleticism shined through and it was apparent. I thought he was the most athletic running back there. You saw it in his ability to stop and start. His cuts, they were sharp. There wasn't much wasted movement with him. His athleticism is not something that you can question with his package that he brings to the table. Patience. And I think I talk about patience a lot with running backs, and to me, it's a key ingredient, but not all running backs have it. I don't think Leonard Fournette is the most patient back in the world. I've talked about Dalvin Cook and how I think he's a very patient runner. I think Christian McCaffrey is in that same mold. He's a guy that will pick and pick and pick until something comes about and then hit the hole, okay? Sometimes there's not gonna be much there. I also love his ability to turn skinny, get sideways, and get through a hole that may not be that big. Sometimes when you're a smaller back, and this is a smaller back we're talking about here, you need to have that ability to be able to turn skinny, excuse me, and get through a hole that isn't that big, because sometimes these big nasties aren't able to open up the most gaping hole. You gotta make something out of nothing. He does a really good job of that. And sometimes when you need to allow a play to develop, you need to have that patience. And one of my favorite sayings about patience is patience to the hole, explode through the hole. And so Christian McCaffrey has that patience to the hole, and then when that hole opens up, he can explode through that hole. Love his patience. Multiple speed runner. I talk about this with backs a lot, and if you're one of the elite backs, normally you're gonna be a multiple speed runner. Like I said, with a guy like Leonard Fournette, not really a multiple speed runner, really monotone runner, but nonetheless, he can get the job done. But Christian McCaffrey, if you're gonna be a smaller guy, you need to be a multiple speed runner. And usually, if you have patience as a back, then you're gonna be a multiple speed runner, because you gotta have that ability to change gears. Sometimes you gotta slow play it, then you gotta turn it up, then you gotta de-accelerate, then you gotta turn it back up again in order to get the most out of a run. Sometimes you might catch a screen, okay? And you gotta allow these blockers to get out in front. But then maybe one of these guys is taking too goddamn long and you gotta zoom past them. But then maybe there's a wide receiver that's coming up and he's gonna give you the block that's gonna turn this play from a 27-yard gain to a 47-yard touchdown. You gotta be able to de-accelerate, then turn it back up and get to the end zone. Christian McCaffrey, multiple speed runner. Yakster, okay? If you're gonna do all of these things, you better be a yakster. If you wanna be a first round back, you better be a yakster. You better be getting yards after contact. It is a necessity. He's one of those guys that will bounce off of contact, will run through contact. And I think one of the things, and one of the big things I've seen with these backs, and I love it because I love different flavors. I love, how sometimes you go to an ice cream shop, and I don't know what's your flavor, Baskin Robbins, Cold Stone, whatever, Dairy Queens. You go in there and they got all these different flavors. And what's your flavor? And with these backs, they all bring something different to the table. With Leonard Fournette, he can run a guy over. With Dalvin Cook, I talked about his jump cut being massively aggressive and very devastating. I think one of Christian McCaffrey's biggest assets is his stiff arm, and that allows him to be a yakster. So go ahead and combine those two pros. His stiff arm, to me, by far is the best of the elite backs in this draft. When he puts his arm on a guy and he puts that hand out there, it's with purpose. You see a lot of guys throw the stiff arm out there just to throw it out there, but it doesn't really do anything. His stiff arm is with purpose. He's looking to separate himself from that defender and pick up more yardage, and he does a damn good job. If you look at Christian McCaffrey and a lot of his big runs, you'll see that at some point in that run, there was a stiff arm that aided him in getting away from that defender. He's really aggressive with his stiff arm. I like that about him. Not enough young running backs come to the league with a stiff arm equipped, and usually either you have one or you don't, because stiff arms aren't something that's innate, but normally you either use it aggressively or you don't. He uses it very well, and I think that's something that is a big, big plus for Christian McCaffrey. Contact balance and balance itself. He's a guy I talked about earlier that will jump over a defender, and that's part of the reason why he's a yakster. You can contact this guy. He'll run through contact. He'll pick up extra yards. In the offense at Stanford, he was the offense at Stanford, and so whether he was catching it out of the backfield or running it, this is a guy that endured a ton of contact and had to continue to run through it and pick up extra yards. So great contact balance. He can take a shot, keep on going, and great balance in general to make guys miss sometimes, to get hit, keep his feet, and get more yards after contact. Pass catching ability, we know this is one of his biggest strengths. To me, he's the best pass catching back in this draft. You can do so many things with this guy out of the back. And this is part of the reason why I said you must have a plan for him, because I don't think he's a Leonard Fournette, line him up and, give it to him 25 times a game type of guy. I think he's going to find a way to touch it possibly 25 times in a game, but it won't be in that, let's just give it to him 25 times out of the backfield. You're going to have to find ways to creatively use this guy. And I think one of the best ways to use him is as a receiver. With a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you can make the defense identify whether it's a man-to-man set or it's zone coverage. And so you can send this guy in motion and then send him back out in the back. And now you know, okay, linebacker went with him in coverage. It's man-to-man coverage. So now you know what you're getting. Now you can attack the defense accordingly. He's that kind of matchup nightmare and chess piece that you can play around with. And a lot of that stems from his pass catching ability. You must account for him out of the backfield or he will make you pay. Special teams value. Okay, this is a guy that at Stanford returned kickoffs, returned punts. So this is a guy that day one steps in. If he's not ready to help, which I can't see being the case, but if he's not ready to help on offense, he can help you day one, special teams, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I think this is a guy that's going to be more than ready to jump in and help a team offensively, whether it be just on third downs or in special packages or special situations. Nonetheless, if you can't find a way to get him on the field offensively, you'll be able to get him on the field on special teams. This guy gives you value day number one as a return man, whether it's punts or kickoffs. He did both at Stanford. Bloodline. Okay, this is a guy that, look, let's not make any bones about it. When your father or your uncle or your cousin played in the league and had a successful career, it matters, especially when it's your dad, okay? Because then we know you have some of his blood in your DNA. You're going to be a guy that can potentially get it done at this level. So his dad was easy Ed McCaffrey, one of the smoothest, tall, white dudes you see catch a football in the National Football League during his playing time. And so he's got that in him. His brothers are all football players. They are all successful playing. A lot of them are playing in college as we speak right now. So his bloodlines run deep. That is for certain. Playing the pro-style offense at Stanford, they handed him the rock a ton. And so he touched the ball quite a bit. They lined up, they pounded teams into submission. David Shaw loved to run the football. Hell, they would run it on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Really, they didn't give a damn. First down, second down, third down, fourth down. Any down was a running down for them at Stanford. So he knows how to line up in a pro-style offense. And then finally, to me, the biggest pro of them all for Christian McCaffrey as he makes his way to the next level is that he's an all-purpose monster, okay? This is a guy that in 2015, where I thought he was robbed and should have been the Heisman Trophy winner, this guy had over 3,800 all-purpose yards. You're talking about a guy that ran for over 2,000 yards, caught for another 600, and then also had 1,200 on the nose in return yards, punts, and kickoffs combined. You're talking about almost 4,000 all-purpose yards in one collegiate season, which is asinine. Don't know how this guy wasn't the Heisman Trophy winner, but that's nor here nor there. Bottom line is, if you maximize the talents of Christian McCaffrey, he brings that to the table for you as a guy that can run it, catch it, and return punts and kickoffs if need be. You go from all of those pros and all of those things that I think set him apart from some of the other backs in this draft to some of his cons that you might have to look out for if you're going to make him a player on your team in the upcoming draft. So I saw a funny video with Christian McCaffrey, and it was him on the bench at the combine, and it was hilarious. This man was struggling, okay? And so the first con, before I even get to it, is he a 3-down back, and is he big enough to carry the workload at the next level? I saw this video, and it was sent to me by a buddy of mine. He's like, yo, check out Christian McCaffrey. This dude is struggling with 2.25. I'm like, it can't be that bad, man. He skipped his bowl game to work on the combine. I'm pretty sure he's at least tossing this thing up 12 times, 15 times. He's fine. Leave him alone. He got to 10, and 10 isn't a bad number. We've seen worse, but it was how he got his 10. He struggled, face red. He was struggling to get that bar up 10 times. And so at 5'11", 202, wait a minute now, we almost at that running back Mendoza line at 200 pounds. Whoa, that's a little light in the trunks, okay? So the question, and again, a guy that skipped the bowl game to prepare for the combine, if he was going to put weight on, this would have been the time to do so. So I don't know if this guy's going to be someone that you get him into your facility and you say, hey, get with our nutritionist, get with our trainer. We're going to put an extra 10 pounds on you and get you to 215. I don't know if he's capable of doing that or not. I don't know if his body type will allow him to do that. And him still have the athleticism and the speed that he possesses right now. So that's another debate, another question for another day. But I know this much. At 5'11", 202, the NFL is a very physically demanding game. And if you're going to have this guy touch it, 11 times in the run game, another 7 as a receiver, and then he returns 3 kickoffs and 2 punts. I just gave you 23 touches in one game. Can you do that week in and week out with a 202-pound back? I just don't know the answer to that. And I'll give you a little bit of why this is a guy that may not be able to get to the finish line at that weight and that size, and he probably won't be able to be a 3-down back for you if you draft him. I don't think that's what he is, to be honest with you. If you draft him, you need to have a plan for him, a package where you say, all right, we're going to get him in the game, and we're going to get him mismatched against a linebacker, against a safety, and we're going to get him the football. We're going to get him out in space. We're going to put him in on third downs and allow him to run the football out of the shotgun. I think he's most effective running the football out of the shotgun. So I feel like he's a guy that you can move around and do some things with and get him in specific situations where he's comfortable and he'll be able to do some things for you. But I don't know if this guy's a 3-down back or not. And I don't know if he's physical enough and his size is big enough to withstand the NFL rigors at 202 pounds as a 3-down rock toting back. I just don't think that's what he is at the next level. You go to his next con, workload and mileage. This man has a little bit of tread off the tires, if you know what I mean. And this is part of that Carfax. Now, in 2015, I talked about the season where I felt like he should have been a Heisman Trophy, real legit candidate and probably should have won it. 434 touches. Yikes! That's a lot of touches. So this guy got work. And I told you David Shaw will run it on first down, he'll run it on second down, he'll run it on third down, run it on fourth down. And if he's not running it, he's probably throwing it to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. So he touched it a ton in 15, turned around, missed a couple of games, the bowl game included in 2016. So he didn't have as many touches. He still touched it 314 times. Okay, and so that guy in 2 years, I just told you 2 years, over 700 touches for Christian McCaffrey. If you add in the special team touches, this is a guy that has some tread off the tires. And I'll tell you one thing, last year he ran out of gas. He missed a game against Notre Dame. And he didn't miss it with a disclosed injury. There wasn't one specific thing wrong. The coach said he's just beat up, okay? When have you ever heard a guy miss a game because he's just beat up? Okay, so that tells you all you need to know. Can he handle that kind of workload at the next level? I wouldn't do that if I were you. I would treat him a little bit like a Reginald Bush. And unlike Reggie Bush, who wanted to be a every down back, I would not allow Christian McCaffrey to do that if I were a team selecting him. I would use him, but use him in a way where he's going to be able to make it to the finish line year in and year out. And then finally, the elephant in the room that I don't think is as big a deal as a lot of people wanted to make it out to be, skipping the final collegiate game. What does that really mean? Is there some kind of under the surface message there that you should be taking note of? I don't think this meant much of anything. Look, I just told you this guy was a workhorse for Stanford. If anybody deserved to be able to skip the final game of their collegiate career, it's Christian McCaffrey for what he did for that program and how much they used him. He probably deserved a pass there. Yeah, you could argue he quit on his team. I'm not a big fan of that. You could have, but we saw what happened to Jalen Smith last year, and I told you, you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more players electing to say, you know what? We had a 9-3 season. We're going to play in the Kraft Macaroni and Cheese Bowl. I can skip the Kraft Macaroni and Cheese Bowl and get ready for my combine and my pro day and all of those things. And so we saw Jake Butt go down, the tight end for Michigan. That would have probably been a second or a third round pick for sure, if not a first rounder. He got injured in the bowl game. And so you're seeing players kind of take heed to those things and say, you know what, not messing around. So I didn't have a problem with it. And I told you this when I talked about Leonard Fournette. You'll never hear me talk about another man and his money, and you'll never hear me talk about another guy doing what he feels is in the best interest of making money in the future and his future in general. So I'm not going to beat him up for him doing that. But in any event, Christian McCaffrey to me is a special type of back in this draft. No, he's not a Leonard Fournette 25 carries a game guy, but you can get to 20 carries or touches, 25 touches with McCaffrey in a multitude of ways. And I don't think any other guy in this draft adds that kind of value, except for maybe one other back that we'll talk about here shortly. But there's no one else in this draft quite like Christian McCaffrey. So I think this is a guy that can come in and instantly help you in a multitude of ways, whether it's running the football, catching it out of the backfield, splitting him out wide as a target as a receiver. And I think he runs routes just as good as a lot of these receivers in this draft. And he gets it from his dad, who was an XY receiver. Or you got him on returns teams in terms of punt return or kickoff return. This guy can be a dual threat for your football team. That's going to do it for Christian McCaffrey and his draft prospects 101 breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it. Oh, heat on the Louie Tee Network. I got plenty more breakdowns for you. Remember, if you want to see me break down Christian McCaffrey, all you need to do is 1,000 views in conjunction with 100 likes. Make it happen, and we'll break it down. I'll see you next time. Whether you're looking for more great content or more of me, your man, Louie Tee, follow, like, and subscribe to the following social media platforms of mine.